Hey everyone, today I'm joined by William Still. He used to be a cocaine trafficker, he used to be a jewel thief, and he robbed mansions. He also had a personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and a serial killer by the name of Robert Durst. He also went to prison and escaped and landed himself on America's Most Wanted. William has since then changed his life, wrote plenty of books, and he's also part of a new show on the A&E network called Inmates Roommates. So please keep an eye out for that. It'll be out here in a few weeks. And also, please don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to get more interviews like this. And without further ado, let me bring him on. Hey, William, how's it going, man?
All right, I'm fine, man. Thank you for having me. We sure appreciate it. You forgot about Ghislaine Maxwell.
yeah, that too. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, because we'll get into that as well. But yeah, I appreciate you taking some time out and coming on my show, man. I really do. And without further ado, we'll talk about your early life. What was your life like, before getting involved with all this stuff?
Well, let me just say this: I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, the Gravesend section, Sheepshead Bay, Bensonhurst area. In my area was a lot of organized crime, mafia guys. I knew some of them. I didn't really hang with them. I was kind of like my own guy. I grew up in a middle-class family. My mother was mentally ill. So I grew up always having to defend her from bullies and neighborhood problems and this and that. Most people loved my mother, but then, when I was very little, people were messing with her. So later on in life, I've always been this person who stands up for the underdog, whether it's women, children, the mentally ill. And so that was always ingrained in me. So when I was younger, I always wanted to be this, try to Mission Impossible guy, James Bond, the guy that can get in and out of anything, break into safes and vaults, open all these locks and disable alarm systems. Well, instead, I got into real estate for a little while, and then I saw a commercial for the New York School of Locksmithing, took some courses there, graduated top of my class. Now I got the skills I need to do what I wanted to do, but I kind of went bad. I developed a cocaine problem. So I took those skills and I started doing multi-million-dollar burglaries all across the United States. And I hit everywhere from South Florida to Las Vegas, California, Beverly Hills, Laguna Beach, all over the country. And I'm not proud of it. I'm not here to glorify my past, but all through those experiences and burglaries coast to coast, I got involved with not only cocaine use, but I don't smoke weed. I don't do pills, but I got involved with cocaine trafficking, gun trafficking from South Florida to New York, trunks full of, kilos of cocaine back in the 80s, guns, converting firearms to full auto, sending them up to New York usually. And I was involved with a whole lot of things. And I know that I got through that, barely. I have a strong faith in God now. And I know that, there's something more going on in this universe, and that kind of saw me through that. So I ended up getting arrested a few times. I just got released from doing 18 years in prison. But before all that, I ran across some very, very now infamous individuals in California, certain celebrities. Additional books are coming out. But some of those characters, and you see the posters on the wall behind me, Robert Durst, the wealthiest serial killer in American history. His family manages like the World Trade Center complex in New York, the Durst organization, and controls a gigantic portion of Manhattan real estate. These are like billionaire type people. Well, he was the black sheep and was going around the country murdering people. So I knew him, and so I wrote a book about him, Sex and the Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst. You can see the link in the description. And I also met Jeffrey Epstein. I was in Palm Beach, and I was at a fence's place. I was wanted by the cops. I had a briefcase with me. Inside, I had jewelry. I was used to carry a gun. I wasn't a hitman or anything like that, but I used to carry guns because I was very much a loner, and I was a jewel thief, and I was a cocaine trafficker. So I used to be connected to some degree with some cartel members from the Medellin cartel. Those were my connections years ago, 80s, 90s. I'm not giving up any names. But so I would run stuff to New York, me and somebody else sometimes. And I was at a Fences jewelry salon in Palm Beach, and who I now know to be Jeffrey Epstein was there with his hand in the back of a young lady's shorts. She did look underage. I followed him to a restaurant, confronted him. It escalated. Bottom line, he was so scared, he gave me his information. We stayed in touch. I detail that in my book, how I met him and how I literally, because we're both from Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn. he's from Brooklyn. I picked up on his voice right away, and I called him out on what he was doing, and he talked his way out of it. I was wanted, and I was dirty, and I had a silencer with me, and I had, stolen jewelry with me. So I wasn't really in a position to call the cops. And if I was in New York, it would have turned out a lot different. He probably would have had some injuries. Yeah. But he talked his way out of it, and then I dealt with him for a few years. Eventually, I met Ghislaine Maxwell. After I met her, there came a time when we became intimate. We had, on and off again relationship with her and with some of her adult assistants in the Palm Beach house. It's on El Brillo Way. So I was just there last week, as a matter of fact, first time in years. House is now torn down. I did some footage there for my own podcast, Official William Steele on YouTube, Instagram. But so that video is going to go up soon. And so the times that I met her, it was like consensual, but the last time I saw her wasn't at all consensual. And I detail what happened in my book, Ghislaine, Sensational and Impure. And you'll see it on Amazon. The link is in the description. It was where I was drugged, number one. And we were together with a female assistant of hers, having a threesome. And in the beginning it was all, nice, whatever. And it turned into not so nice when I lost consciousness. So I ended up restrained. There was some problems at the house. That was the last time I saw her. And you'd have to read the book for the information about what happened. But even prior to that, Jeffrey was so incensed that I had literally on Palm Beach on Worth Avenue pulled a gun on him under the table, and demanded that he answer my questions. And he was stuttering all over himself, trying to, figure out what to say to me and, talk his way out of this. But he baited my greed and asked me, eventually, why I was over there at the jewelry store. This guy was a friend of mine. He was a diamond salon. I mean, it was a second-story salon, and it's on Worth Avenue. That's like California equivalent to Rodeo Drive. So,
right. So what was he? What was he trying to ask you, or what questions were you asking him?
Oh, I was asking him. I said, "Look, I saw what you did at such and such a salon, the diamond salon." Okay. I said, "I saw what you did. He's a friend of mine. I was there on business, and how old is that girl you're with? It's not cool, Oh no, that's my niece. She's 18." And in the book I explained how he talked his way through it, and then I confronted her to verify it. I told him, "Sit your effing ass right there. Don't move." And I went to her table and I spoke to her. She pretty much backed him up. I think he knew I had followed him there, and they got their story together. But he was confronted, and I warned him that there's videos in that store, and that I don't know how the police would look, too kindly on getting those videos and seeing him with his hand down her pants if she was underage, in the back. There was nobody really there but me, and he didn't realize I walked in. And so it was a very private salon.
Yeah. And so after that, he had given you his card or his information to buy jewelry from you. That was, and at that time, I told him
I was in the jewelry business, and he's said he'd like to do business with me. He didn't know how much business we'd eventually do, but it was always jewelry or cocaine when I went to the house.
But at this time, you didn't know that there was a bunch of this underage girl stuff going on.
No, I had no clue the extent of it. I knew he was a little weird, and that was completely inappropriate. Over time, I saw young girls coming and going, but it was always like, what's going on with that? They're models, he would tell me. Ghislaine would tell me they're models, they're masseuses, they're giving Jeffrey massages. We know now what all that means. It was grooming them for other things, other purposes, and blackmail videos, with other adults and prominent people.
Yeah. Well, so what? I was going to say. So what? While you went to the island a few times then?
No, I've never been to the island.
Never did. Okay.
No, you're talking about Little St. John or something. I forget what it's called. No, I was at the house in Palm Beach, which is in South Florida, and it's just north of Fort Lauderdale in Miami. For example, we were just there, and I was just really taking it all in again after so many years. And when I filmed, the house is surrounding. It's a lot now. It's an empty lot with a gigantic "Do Not Trespass" sign. Surveillance camera. You still see the white driveway, the big tiles. And so I filmed there real quick, and then when I realized that it was torn down, because I was hoping I could see somebody there and maybe, just maybe, explain my situation and get some permission to go film inside, because I had marked something in there, and that's why I went there. I wanted to film what I marked, and to see the house was torn down, and then remember what I went through in that house, I almost lost it. I got very, I lost my composure. We had to reshoot a couple of times. But so anyway, we left. The police were
what did you
watching
mark
us.
on there?
That's, you have to look at the book to see.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so there's proof, you know, that I was there. The police are aware of it. They probably videoed that or whatever. They have it. But I just wanted to revisit it myself.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
It's one of these things that hasn't really been made public until I decided to make it public.
Okay.
So at one point, he became really irritated with me. And because I used to be in those days for survival more than anything else, not because I was some kind of badass. I wasn't like a hitman or, you know, one of these guys like, you know, your early guest, John A. Light and all these guys, you know, hurting and killing people. You know, I was good at playing the image, though, but really I was just a jewel thief. I was good at opening safes and locks and, you know, flying under the radar. I didn't hang out with, you know, thuggish guys. I knew a lot of them, but I didn't hang out with them.
Yeah. And what was your process, you know, when you were selling or when you were robbing jewels and stuff like that?
Well, I had many different ways, but a lot of times I would pose as Donna Karan, the fashion designer's brother. And what I would do is I would talk to realtors and say, my sister's doing a fashion show in Milan, and she wants us to find a house on the water in South Florida, intercoastal, oceanfront, you know, $3 to $6 million range. I make all the decisions, show me some houses. They all knew who Donna Karan was, so I'd get carte blanche to all these houses that were for sale along the ocean, and, you know, all over South Florida. This is the South Florida situation. And when I would go in, I would usually in those days have a little camera with me, a little video camera. They didn't have the phones with the cameras. And I'd say, look, if she decides to make an offer, we're going to gut renovate everything anyway. I know what we're looking for, but she knows how she wants to do the interior. So is it okay if I film? And sure, you can film. Now you can take like virtual tours of houses. But back then, I'd bring my camera and I'd say, because I didn't want to touch and leave fingerprints, I would tell the realtor, do me a favor as we go through, open every closet and get out of the way. And then, so when they would do that, especially around the laundry room or the master bedroom, you'd inevitably come across a safe if it wasn't hidden too well, or an alarm panel, and the different devices, the different motion detectors, the switches and stuff, the panel. If I know what they have from casing it from the inside, I can study it a little more thoroughly later and then more easily get in. Plus, in talking to the realtor, usually I was pretty good about determining, you know, when the owner's going to be in and out of town. You know, I'm from Chicago, I would say. I was somewhere else besides New York. And, you know, we want to know where, you know, how much this and that, you know, whatever their expenses are, whoever's coming over to the house. You'd be surprised how much in small talk they just divulge. And it makes them so vulnerable. So, you know, if you're a realtor, and I do a lot of warning videos now, warning people how to avoid these traps, because a lot of people can pose as a buyer, like I did, and go in for nefarious purpose, and a lot of things can go bad. That being said, I'm not trying to glorify what I did or my techniques, but I am also starting something on my own station, official William Steele, called The Misadventures of a Super Thief, which shows all the problems that can come up that can get you arrested, killed, or confronted, or hurt. And so I'm not trying to glorify my past. It was a long time ago, but so now we're making videos explaining things and what can go wrong. And I think that realtors should be taking an ID. Obviously, there's cameras everywhere. Make sure they know who they're dealing with. I only had one when I went to see, you know, a $6-7 million house, say that we needed, I think they said a financial, you know, report or something, you know, document to show who I was exactly. No one else ever did. And they would just let me in these houses because they want to make their commissions. The realtors, for the most part, I'm not disparaging all realtors, don't give a crap about your household belongings. They want to make a commission. So if somebody clean cut comes in to look at a house, they're generally going to let you. That being said, I look at houses all the time for investment purposes. However, you know, then and you just have to be careful who you're letting in your house.
Right.
That's all there is to it. So I'm putting out these warning videos, trying to teach people and realtors how to avoid these pitfalls.
You might even be able to offer.
So then I would come back, you know, I'd have so much information on these videos, and generally the realtors are just disclosing schedules and this and that. You could just put 2 and 2 together, and you can go at various times. I already know the exact alarm system, where it's vulnerable, where maybe an area is not covered. It doesn't make a difference. You know, there's be times I could just get into the garage, go up into the attic, and then you follow, you know, in those years you could follow the cables to where they connect with the panel and drop down, and then you just drop down in the same spot and go in there and disable the whole panel and the battery and everything, take over the house. Some of them will still go out to Central Station, but there's other ways. There's other ways. You see a lot of art galleries, they have keypads when you go in, certain stores. As soon as you walk in, their alarm's right there. You know, there's been one that was in a bathroom. There's these ultraviolet ink pens you can just mark the buttons with. You know, come back 3 days later, you put a black light on it, you can see where they've been touching on the buttons.
Wow.
Where they've been touching now is process of elimination. It's usually 3 numbers. It's going to be what, a combination of, I think, 9. So it's combination, you know, just X amount of tries. You have, you know, so again, I'm teaching people the pitfalls. Do not put your keypad in a visible place to anybody, whether in the back is a window where somebody can set up a camera and see it, where it's in a bathroom private to give somebody a chance to try to determine what numbers you're hitting. Just all kind of little tips that I'm starting to give out on my site. But so that's how I did some of the heist, you know. And again, you know, we back to Maxwell and Epstein. So like I said, last time I saw her, it didn't end well for me. I was being threatened. I was being told that this is in 2005. She was scared to death that Jeffrey was going to be the death of hers, were her exact words. And she didn't want to tell me everything going on. But I found out later, much later, they knew they were under investigation because of the corruption within the local police and everything. Sources within the corrupt law enforcement locally and down in Palm Beach and Florida, that this was going on and that Jeffrey was going to be the death of her. So I detail a lot of this conversation in the book. Well, one of the things is she knew that I was wanted. And what happened was she was putting pressure on me as a favor, willing to pay me to go make sure that Jeffrey got killed. And I was trying to talk my way out of this house because she was pretty much making it clear that I either wouldn't be leaving or that she'd call the cops and have me arrested for being in the house. Now, with my record, that's the last place I needed to be charged with being, you know, have burglary in my past. You know, I just didn't want to be accused of that by these socialites, you know, millionaires and billionaires on Palm Beach. They're not going to believe me when the cops show up. They're going to. I was in a very vulnerable position, if you know what I mean, at the time, and scared. I was already wanted again, and I pretty much said whatever I could to get out of the situation. But when I said, "Look, you're way more, you're way more wealthy than I am," and I wasn't wealthy by any stretch at the time. Why can't you find somebody else? They said, because, you know, she said, because nobody knows you, you know, and it was in between them doing things to me, and which I'm not going to get into detail on, of course, but I was just terrified, man. I still have PTSD from what I went through, and I've been through counseling for this for several years. Anyway, I pretty much told her anything she wanted to hear to get the hell out of there. But she, even back then in 2005, was seriously, even though she loved Jeffrey Epstein, know that this was going to fall apart and she was going to be going to prison. And when I mentioned her connections, prior to this, let me just back up a little bit. Jeffrey showed me really when I had no choice but not to leave the room, because it was one of the security detail guys there. It looked like a big, huge guy, you know, he's got a gun and everything, and stood in the doorway, and he had previously tried to invite himself into the bed. And I said, no, you know, I'm not into all that and whatever. But he was so incensed that I had pulled a gun on him in Palm Beach. I think this was his payback, because he says, you're not going to go anywhere till I show you something. And a few more things were said, which I talked about in the book. And, you know, a lot of things I can't discuss just yet because there's legal matters going on still. There's probably get some more arrests. He played some videos that showed clearly hidden cameras in different locations with extremely prominent people being videotaped having sex with minors. Extremely well-known people, and only some of the names have come out.
Who are some of the names?
Well, I haven't started talking about this till recently, and I did put a few in the book. I think the most prominent one that stood out to me, you know, besides Bill Clinton and all that, when I saw Hillary Clinton involved with 3 underage females, I couldn't believe it.
Really?
Yes. So I recall these videos when, fast forward, I was in this situation with her, and I said, well, he was president one time. You obviously have dirt on him. She's pretty influential and powerful and actually annoying. And she said, Hillary, I had assured her that if she took care of this and had this done, Hillary would personally assure her that she'd never be prosecuted for a crime connected to what Jeffrey, they were involved with in Palm Beach or whatever. So I told her anything she wanted to hear just to get out of this mess, and I stayed quiet for years. However, when I left there, when I was able to get out with my life, the last time I saw her, I took certain things with me that were turned into 2 branches of law enforcement at the time, and along with a little bit of what occurred, because I knew that they needed to be held accountable, and I knew concretely that there's videos existing because I laid eyes on them. I saw Prince Andrew. I saw Hillary. I saw Bill. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. It would take you, probably an hour and a half broadcast for me to go over the names that I remember. And every now and then I'll see somebody. I'll say, oh, shit, that's one of the people. Because it was like a montage that went on for probably an hour. It wasn't like the full thing. Like if there was a session probably going on an hour or two, it wasn't like that whole thing all the way through. It was key clips clearly showing the face of the people and what they were doing for like 5 minutes, and then another one, and then another one. It was like a montage altogether. They're probably showing this to other people. Well, when I saw the one with Prince Andrew, Jeffrey was very, very clear in saying, he is my Super Bowl trophy. In other words, he owned Prince Andrew. So, like I said, there's more charges coming out. Keep in mind that the Public Corruption Squad of the FBI, it's my understanding that they are the ones investigating all this. Well, if Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein are not politicians, why is the Public Corruption Squad investigating all what's happened? The lawyers that were involved, allegedly, although I saw some photos and videos, if they're so innocent in all this, why did they draft a plea for him in Florida that was a non-prosecution agreement for the federal charges that all known and unknown co-conspirators, have complete immunity if he pleads to the state charge? And he did. He got some county time, where he didn't have to stay at the county. He was in the Stockade. I was in the Palm Beach County Jail. Stockade's a joke, and most guys there can go home for the day or work or this or that, and they have to sleep there, for 6 hours at night or whatever it is.
Really?
With his charges as a sex offender, the sheriff, it was illegal for them to give him any privileges outside of the building because he's a sex offender. Mm-hmm. They let him leave all day long. His limousine would pick him up, his drivers, whatever, go to his mansion, go to his office, go to Miami, his lawyer's office, still screwing around with kids while he was serving time in the Palm Beach County Stockade. Why hasn't somebody looked at why the rules that cannot allow a low-level county jail inmate who's serving sex offense charges, they cannot leave the facility. They have to serve out their time. It still wasn't much to begin with considering what he did, but they weren't allowed to leave. It's in their own policies in Palm Beach County. He left every day. Anyway, I say that to say this. So these lawyers and all their brilliance forgot one key thing. His deal was for the Southern District of Florida. That's encompassing Florida, I think 2 or 3 other states in that area, or maybe the southern part of Florida. I forget what it encompasses. That was his deal, immunity in all those areas for federal prosecution. What they forgot to do is include New York. So what happens is, with all these lawyers being on video, it's odd that they were allowed to be the ones to draft the deal for Jeffrey's plea deal in Florida. Like I said, it only encompasses the Southern District of Florida. What they didn't count on is the Southern District of New York had other things up their sleeve and charged him anyway. There's such an outrage at this point. So he got charged up there. And once he realized that his plea didn't cover him up there and he was not going to get a bond because he just flew in from France when they arrested him, that's when he turned up dead. We don't know how yet, but
what was your thoughts on that?
A hell of a lot of people had reason to murder him. There was a guy who evidently assaulted him before, Taglione, I think his name was, a cop who killed a bunch of people was in the same unit, and he reported to his lawyers that guy had strangled him a day or two before. Just before he was murdered, a day or two before, he signed over everything he owns to his brother Mark. So now Mark is holding on to all this stuff, trying to hide it from victims. There was a fund set up, and victims have been paid. So I was really inspired by all these victims to come forward more publicly. I came forward long ago to law enforcement. I came forward in counseling, about what happened. But publicly, the book that I put out. Now, let me rewind to where I was. So now, through all these experiences, I ended up in prison. I escaped from prison. I did 18 years for nonviolent crime. While I was there, I really started examining my life a little more closely, and that's why I now have on my YouTube the misadventures of a super thief. I put all how this life of crime can go wrong. 5-minute clips all over the place. I'm starting to put one out maybe every day or two. And I'm not trying to glorify my past lifestyle. I did a lot of time, but when I was in prison, I was a law clerk. I worked for the Offender Representative Committee, which was assisting the administration and the offenders to work together to resolve problems without grievances and litigation, and try to have both sides, understand the rules and do their job and really take care of things. And I worked for the chaplain's office. I worked as a law clerk. I worked in the medical department. So it's always been in my heart to help people. Then I came across a lot of guys who were actually innocent in prison, but because they're illiterate or because they couldn't afford an attorney, they're stuck. Now, when they write these college innocence projects, these university innocence projects, a lot of them can't help because of lack of funding. So what I want to do now that I'm out, I took a bunch of college courses. I started writing a book about my life. I hooked up with an A-list screenwriter in California. She passed away to do my story. But while she was working on that, she passed away. And the pandemic came out. So we're in lockdown. And some of the people I met have become super infamous. Jeffery Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Durst. So my co-author, Gary Greenberg, on my first books, Sex and the Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst. So Gary was one of the editors at the National Enquirer. He's a true crime writer. He's a friend of mine. I testified for the defense at a trial where a young kid was being framed in Palm Beach County. And Gary was the jury foreman, and he happened to work for the Enquirer. So we stayed in touch. He said, you have an interesting story. Let's tell it. And so we did the first book together. And so that book was doing well. I got out of prison. Now I started, just before I got released, I met a beautiful lady, my fiance, Mary, and she's a forensic accountant. She's a fraud examiner. She investigates like racketeering cases, civilian. She's not law enforcement, but she'll work with companies and victims of like probate fraud and stuff like that. And so we really hit it off because I really like helping victims now. And I want to turn my life around. Like you say, invest in yourself. So what do I have to invest in? I have my wits. I can go back into sales or this or that. I succeed anywhere I work. I could be a law clerk in a law firm, or I can go back into real estate. These things I can do them well. I always come out ahead. But I think it's more rewarding to me to take my experiences and share them with people to try to help them. I don't know if I'm being heard right now.
Yeah. So no, I know you. There's just a lot to take in, and that's awesome that you came out of prison and now you're helping people, and you have your fiance that does the same thing. So what better perfect couple like that?
So I had some mentors. I wrote these books. Yep, I've had some good mentors come into my life. Peter Tickton, he's now representing Donald Trump. He's a friend of mine. He's my mentor. I have all these influential people, and then like one of the top people that I'm now, she's now my agent, is Liz Coppola. Liz Coppola, the Godmother agent, Mother Courage. She's out of Las Vegas, California. She's all over the world helping people to really build up their podcasts and their reputations. And she's a phenomenal agent. She's been booking me things left and right. But the craziest part of all this, besides what Liz is doing for me, is just before I got released 14 months ago now from an 18-year, prison sentence. Now, because I escaped from prison, I was in solitary confinement in 2 different states in the Supermax for almost 4 years because they considered me ultra high risk. If they took me to a hospital.
I was going to say, how did you escape, if you can get into that?
It was nothing fancy, but because of who I am, they took it super serious because of my skills with locks and alarms. And so I was out, and the U.S. Marshals and the police and everybody were looking for me. But the horrible part was when I got caught, I ended up with another 15 years consecutive in that state. And I ended up in a Supermax in 2 different states for a total of 4 years, almost all of it in isolation. So all that time gave me plenty of time to think, and I really got into my Bible and writing and reading books. And as I said, I took these college courses and I started staying in touch with the professors and people that I was allowed to stay in touch with. And they made such a difference in my life and my outlook, because who the hell am I? I'm in prison and you're taking an interest in me to try to help me get back on my feet. When my own family turned their back on me, completely turned their back on me, and for financial reasons, that's out there. That's no secret. I know what happened. I have the legal documents to prove it. I went recently to try to make peace with my family, and the first thing they want to do is act like I'm doing something wrong and call the cops and all this nonsense, when I've already told them, look, I forgive you for all the stealing you've done for me, and I forgive you for everything. I just, we only have one family.
Yeah.
Still they treated me like I was out to get them or something. It's just really sad and pathetic. It's hurtful, but it is what it is. I'm trying to do the right thing, and I am doing the right thing. And now, just before I got released, I was offered a TV show. And as you can see from the sign behind me, it's called Inmate to Roommate. It airs on August 18th. You have the description down, the link, and the trailer is on my official William Steele on YouTube. Go see the trailer. Please subscribe, man. I asked you guys to please subscribe, because this is what I do for a living now, writing books and trying to help people. And the show is about holding down recidivism, return rates to prison, because they examine this and they understand that people who have drug or alcohol addiction, which I struggle with cocaine, but not for this, but without a place to live when they get out, usually reoffend and go right back to prison for lack of adequate housing. So this show, according to their own press release, examines what happens when somebody gets out of prison and lives with a family or some people that they didn't know beforehand, and how that works out for everybody.
Yeah,
I can't tell you much more than that, but you have to see it, man. Go see the trailer and you'll get a feel for it. It's going to be on A&E August 18th, and I'm allowed to talk about it now because they just put out that trailer here about last week.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because here I am. I have a lot of stories to tell, and I was going to do a true crime podcast anyway, which I am doing now.
Yeah.
I'm going to have murder victims' family members on, law enforcement on, investigators on, people that are willing to come on to discuss cold case homicides and what can be done, what's missing, why are they thinking you're not doing your job, are you doing your job, and to try to help crime victims. I also want to continue with my fiance to help people that are actually innocent, incarcerated, and we're doing that. We're up. If you go to my site, Official William Steele, please check it out. We're open to suggestions about interviews like you are. We're looking to interview crime victim family members, celebrities. Now that I have this platform or my own TV show, I'm actually getting tons of interview requests. The network assigned an entire publicity team for the show, 1, and 2 publicists strictly for me. So they kind of give me guidelines of what I can and cannot say. Understandable. I can't give anything away what happens in the show, and I'm not going to. All I can tell you was really fascinating, and there's some very, very interesting moments in there.
Yeah.
And including some things, But
yeah, well,
that's what it is.
I was gonna say, well, if the people love your story that they heard tonight, they're definitely gonna need to check out your series that you have on that A&E network, man, because it does sound like it's really interesting, because not a lot of people really see what it's like, after you get out of prison, especially after 18 years, because that's a grip of time, and that's a long time, and you come out, your family, and nothing you do. Go ahead.
Let me tell you something. My mother passed away. I had people zone in, tell her I was dead. She was mentally ill. They've been telling her that I was dead. They didn't tell her I was in prison. She signed over everything to them before she died. I had $800,000 about stolen from me.
Wow.
Social media didn't exist before I went in prison. There was no iPhone. There was no, Facebook, Instagram. But guess what? Already from observing me before we started talking, I'm on it every day now, trying to learn, asking a lot of stupid questions, making a lot of stupid mistakes. For example, I got banned on Messenger today. I guess I sent out the wrong message to too many people of advertising something, and I thought it was my work, but it was like an ad on how to market books, and I accidentally sent that out, and people, I guess, got irritated. So I'm not making these mistakes on purpose. I'm not trying to be irritating, but I have 18 years to catch up on, and I'm on it. I'm learning this stuff. I'm a very quick study. And that's all there is to it, man. There's no stopping it. You know, I'm grateful to God. I'm grateful for my supporters. Grateful for this opportunity. People like Liz Coppola, she sees some good in me that's worthwhile to keep the story coming out there. And I want to help victims. It's all I want to do is keep helping victims, help them tell their stories, help them get these cases solved. And I hope your people join me, and I'll suggest that my people join you. You know, we're what you're trying to do, you know. So,
Well, I appreciate it, William. I really do appreciate you taking out an hour or so of your time and, you know, coming on and sharing your story, you know, because it's really powerful. You've really been through a whole lot of stuff. And, you know, well, obviously we didn't even cover everything that you've been through. So if you guys want to see more of his stories and stuff, go to his YouTube, where it's going to be in the description below. He's got so much more that he's been through. And please be sure to check out his show. He's going to be on the A&E Network August, what was it?
August 18th.
Okay.
Inmate to roommate.
Yep. Okay. Well, other than that, man, you got anything else you want to say or add?
Man, I'm just humbled and blessed to have this opportunity, this platform, and turn my past around to help other people. That's what it's all about. I want to give back. It sucked being in prison. I lost a lot. I was horribly lonely and desperate. And God just started, I believe God has started putting things together, man. I'm not a beat you over the head kind of Christian guy, but I do have a strong faith. And I'll tell you what, things are really coming together. The more I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everybody supporting me. Please read my books. It's what I do for a living now. Amazon will have these. And that's it. I have 2 more books coming out here in a few weeks.
He had a pretty interesting story, right? Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment, a key takeaway that you got from this video. You know, he has a lot of stuff that he was involved with, and, you know, he's got plenty more coming. So please be on the lookout for that. I'm going to put everything that he has going for himself right now in the description below. And, you know, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to get more interviews like this. And, you know, thanks again. Appreciate you watching.